This remarkable, sometimes incoherent transcript illustrates a phantasmagoria of fear, terror, grief, exultation, and finally breakdown. Its highlights have been compressed on this recording to make their own disquieting points.
G'day everyone, it's great to have your company here on Edge Radio 99.3. My name is Dwayne. The show is Kaleidoscope Ears and I'm going to be taking you through to 8 o'clock this evening, and I'm by myself in the studio tonight. A little bit sad, but we'll be back next week with an almost full complement. Nobby's going to be back, and I recommend all you listeners come back as well, because we have something extremely special, possibly the biggest event for this particular show. For 2011, we're going to be featuring Stephen Wilson's second solo album. It's called Grace for Drowning. It's just been released. We haven't even got it yet. It's in transit as we speak. I'm sure we could jump online and download it from iTunes or something, but we always like the physical thing, us sad and sorry prog lovers here. We like to hold the music in our hands. And we're going to be featuring this evening a couple of prog bands, a bit more local. This time we're going to be sticking with a couple of Sydney bands. I'm very excited to be talking about them as well, and they're part of the conglomerate known as the Birds Robe Collective, and both of these bands caught my attention, one more recently than the other, but we're going to talk about one of them first, and that is a band by the name of Pirate. But during the show, if you want to post your comments, you can do that at Kaleidoscope Ears is the Twitter feed, or at Edge Radio. I'll be checking that through the evening. You can send us text on 0427 Edge FM. You can also Facebook Kaleidoscope Ears, so it's facebook.com/Kaleidoscope Ears, and put your messages there as well. We'll be checking. We're very busy on the online presence these days. It's fantastic. And you can also keep an eye on our interactive playlist. I'll be updating it as we go through. So if there's a track that you hear through the evening and you want to find out what it was without having to text me, you can go to edgeradio.org.au, look for Kaleidoscope Ears on the program grid, and I'll be updating that playlist as we go through the evening. If there happens to be a YouTube clip that goes with the track, you can listen again. Isn't that clever? The first band I'm going to feature tonight is Pirate, and they caught my attention about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, when I was interested in bands who were being supported by the Birds Robe Collective, which is incidentally now a record label. And I was sent a bunch of CDs by the BRC, and Pirate's EP, the first EP, simply called Pirate, stood out to me. But they have just released a brand new album. It's called Left of Mind. It was released a month or two back, and they're currently touring that. Unfortunately, they won't be getting down to Tasmania, but it's definitely worth giving a good old play here on the show tonight. I'm going to be speaking to Joel, who is the guitarist, not the guitarist, I knew I was going to get that wrong. He is the saxophonist and the vocalist for the band, and I'm going to be speaking with him later in the show. And the second band, we're also going to be having an interview with a person from the second band I'm featuring tonight. We'll possibly be starting before the second hour, so make sure you're back in time for that second band if you happen to go anywhere. But of course, that's not going to happen, is it? So I'm going to play the opening track of Pirate's first EP because it grabbed my attention straight away. And that's what I like about these experimental type bands. If they can grab me, I'll stay interested enough to listen right to the end, which is what I did with Pirate. This is the opening track. It's called Phallicus Metallicus. You're listening to Kaleidoscope Ears on Edge Radio, and that was Pirate with the opening track from their, and the title track of their newest album, well, their debut album called Left of Mind. And feel free to text us on 0427 Edge FM through the show this evening. It'd be great to hear from you. I had the opportunity of speaking with Joel Woolf. He was the guitarist. I said it again. I can't believe it. I'm getting confused with my musicians here. He is actually the saxophonist, and I'm going to play that interview now just to give you an idea of what he has to say about his band. I've got with me Joel Woolf from Sydney-based experimental rock band Pirate. So how are you, Joel?
I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thanks. So tell me, how long have you guys been together?
We formed in about 2007, so whatever that is, about 4.5 years or something. Yeah.
And how would you describe your music to the uninitiated?
I guess we are experimental rock. We have, people say we're prog. I suppose we are prog. There's all kinds of elements in there. We all have different sort of backgrounds. which we bring to it. But basically, it's our live show is sort of very intense, very light, very loud, I guess chaotic in a good way. And then we try and sort of bring that to the music we put out on CD as well.
So you've been around a while. Do you think there's a market for instrumental rock in Australia, or you just don't care, you're going to play what you want anyway?
I have to say the thinking about the market is secondary to the the playing of the music. So having said that, I think there is probably a market, although it's not a huge market. But like I said, I mean, we don't do it to get rich and famous. I don't think that's on the cards, but I think it's possible for us to play to people who, like yourself, who are interested in the music and who care about it. So I guess that's what we're in it for.
Absolutely. How did you guys come to develop your unique sound? You do realise, you've got some pretty strong similarities to high-profile bands like King Crimson and Van de Graaff Generator.
I know, it's funny. People have said that to us before, and I don't even know if I should say this, but none of us in the band have really spent a lot of time checking out those bands. Perhaps it's something about us sort of having similar influences to those bands even, and then coming up with some kind of product that's the same or something, because we've never really spent too much time checking out King Crimson and Van de Graaff Generator, actually. So yeah.
Obviously, I'm not the first one to compare you that way. Have you gone and checked out those bands since people have mentioned it to you?
Yeah, I have had a bit of a listen, and it's good stuff. Yeah, it's great.
Can you see what people are talking about?
Yeah, I can. I guess it's kind of hard in some ways because, I'm inside of this band. It's hard to view it from an outsider's point of view. So someone says something like that, and you go, oh, okay, and then you listen to something like what they recommended, and you can see where they're coming from. But for me, it's very hard to see our own music in the same way that I see anyone else's music. So it's kind of hard to make a comparison as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, you've been affiliated with the Birds Robe Collective for a while now. It's been a while since we've talked about the BRC on the show. Tell us a bit about it.
Okay, well, basically, it's a bunch of guys in Sydney who formed this collective a few years ago through a love of all things prog, basically. They're really into supporting this kind of music. It's all sort of not-for-profit. They're all just, putting in their own sort of time for the love of the music, basically. And they've just recently launched a record label, Birds Robe Records, which is pretty awesome. They've got some really great releases coming up on that. And they've sort of got a booking roster of bands, I guess, in the same sort of scene as us. They look after. And, basically they're just all-round legends.
Now, you're the saxophone player and the vocalist. I want to ask you about the vocals first. They're not your standard vocals, are they?
No, they're not.
Did I read somewhere that you actually scream into the bell of your saxophone?
It's true. I do. I have been known to do that. It's pretty fun, really, and it sounds pretty awesome when it's going through a humongous PA with heaps of distortion all over it. So, but I guess that's when the spirit takes me. But we have sort of started incorporating some more vocal elements on this latest release, which is still, again, not your sort of straight up vocals. I guess they're more abstract, more effect laden, more of a texture and an instrument rather than your standard sort of straight up front vocals.
Tell me about your electronically treated saxophone. I've read that it's got a bit of a personality disorder.
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a long story, but basically I started off being a saxophone player and being really obsessed with jazz and all things acoustic, believe it or not. And I guess I kind of just wanted some new directions, so I started messing around with putting my sax through guitar pedals and amplifying it, and I found I could come up with some pretty cool sounds to sort of extend the range of tones and textures available to me. So now I have this humongous, stupid pedal board filled with I don't know how many different pedals, delays, distortions, filters, wah pedals, all kinds of things, and yeah, I guess when you say it has a personality disorder, I guess, I'm trying to think about it as a guitarist would in some ways. Switching on the distortion for a more sort of for more projection, more intensity, really spacey delays, all that kind of thing that aren't sort of typically available to just an acoustic saxophone.
So you could be the world's first shoegazing saxophonist.
Well, there have been other sax players who've done same kind of thing, but maybe.
So what was the reception to your first EP? That was the one called Pirate, just Pirate, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yep, there was some pretty intense stuff on there. It's a lot more, I think that's the word. It's a lot more intense than the new album. How was that received?
Look, I think really well. I mean, we feel really blessed that people kind of got to listen to it and seem to like it, which is, fantastic, really.
You are listening to Edge Radio, and this is Kaleidoscope Ears. We're going to be taking you through till 8 o'clock this evening. That was Pirate from their debut album, Left of Mind, with a track called Rough Shuffle. And we'll go straight into the rest of our interview with the saxophonist from the band, Joel Woolf.
Obviously, we didn't really get any mainstream radio exposure, but there have been plenty of people around the country who, in community radio, who've sort of expressed interest in it, which is exactly what community radio is there for. So that's fantastic. And yeah, I guess on the whole, it's been sort of received pretty well, and it was a good learning experience for us for how to produce and record things and what effect that would have, and yeah, I guess it's been received really well.
I was looking at your MySpace page earlier, and the opening track of that EP, Phallicus Metallicus.
Yeah,
that has the most hits. So I think you must have the opening track down pat.
Yeah, thanks.
Now, how long were you guys working on this particular album called Left of Mind, which is has it just been released?
That's right, just been released.
Yeah. How long were you working on that?
Well, I guess we spent a good many months in the writing process, in the rehearsal studio, sort of nutting out the songs and playing them, sort of making crappy little demos and playing them back and listening to them and critiquing them, and really just trying to hone the songs down and whittle them down to their sort of their purest form and their best sort of iteration. And that probably took us, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so of really solid work. And then once we sort of felt like we were ready to record, we spent another, I think it was about 3 months working pretty much every day on recording, mixing, producing, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so quite a while, really.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the actual songwriting process. You alluded to it there, but do you sit down and just flesh things out on paper, or do you just jam it and improvise a song until it forms? Well,
I guess the way we work is one of us will bring in an idea. Let's say it's a riff or a melody or a chord progression or a drum beat, whatever it might be, and show it to the rest of the band. We'll then, each sort of play it and try and figure out what parts would be appropriate with that. If we decide that the idea has sort of merit or something, then we will try and jam around that, come up with parts that we think work well after and before it, and sort of they tend to evolve over a long period of time. So the initial idea might be very different from how it ends up after it's been through our process. And we all sort of, we all have different things that we bring to the band. So it's quite a democratic writing environment, even though we might have different and strong ideas about where things should go.
So it sounds as if it's quite a structured process, even though the end result in some ways seems like organised chaos.
Yeah, I guess there's a method. If there isn't a structure, there's definitely a method that we sort of follow that seems to work for us. A procedure, of a way of working that we follow. I mean, there is a structure. Yeah, there is a structure.
So when you being a more of a progressive band, when you take it out live, do you tend to stick to the format that you've got down, or do you improvise a bit during the live gigs?
There's always room to move, within the songs. There are some parts that are set, I suppose, that are generally the same, and then there are some parts that are completely different. And then there are sort of some, solo sections where obviously it'll be a different solo for a different length each time. Dialogues with the band, dialogues within the band, and different sort of dynamic elements. We might really bring a part right down on one night, whereas it might be really loud and intense on another night. So again, it's sort of very structured, but there's room to breathe and room to move within that structure.
Yeah, so the album's been released now.
Yep.
It's getting lots of good comments. Is that the general reception so far?
Yeah, it seems to be going down really well, which is, really nice to hear.
Yeah, it's always what you want.
Yeah, that's right.
So you're going to be doing, you're going to Melbourne?
That's right. We just played in Melbourne.
Yep.
On the weekend at Progfest, which was really fun. That was great. And then we are going to be heading back to Melbourne a bit later in the year, probably in November, but hasn't been 100% confirmed yet. So, but we've got gigs coming up in a couple of gigs in Canberra, a couple of gigs in Wollongong, and then a couple more Sydney shows as well.
Big question for me is, when are you coming to Tassie?
We would love to come to Tasmania, man. Basically, it's just a money thing, really. I mean, it's hard for us to get there. We tend to travel with all our gear. As you can imagine, we have a lot of specialist stuff we need to take with us, and it's really expensive trying to get that places. Having said that, I definitely think it's on the cards. We'd really love to come down to Tasmania. So I'll talk to Mike, who is our booking guy, and get him onto it.
That'd be really good. If I don't get to see you somewhere on the mainland, wish you all the best and hope to see you in Tassie sometime.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for chatting with me, Joel.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for all your support, man. Really appreciate it.
You are listening to Kaleidoscope Ears with me, Dwayne. This is Edge Radio 99.3 and around the world on edgeradio.org.au. That was Pirate with the closing track, and I mentioned during the interview that they really know how to do an opening track. Well, man, they sure do know how to do a closing track too. It had all the great elements of fantastic classic prog. I'm thinking King Crimson. Even some glimpses of Porcupine Tree in there, which is more modern prog. But these guys coming up with these particular sounds, all part of the prog collective, I guess. These sounds get reinvented and put out in their own unique take, which is really, really enjoyable. So I hope to get to see Pirate at some stage very soon, if not in Tasmania, then hopefully over on the mainland somewhere. Though I am going to play one more track from Pirate's first EP. It's a track that I really like. It's very quirky, but it also has a pretty powerful impact behind it as well. But at the same time, it also makes me smile. It's a very schizophrenic track. It's called Batman's Last Dance. And that was Pirate with Batman's Last Dance, I think that was called. Yes, it was. Batman's Last Dance from their first EP. Go and check out myspace.com/pirate was taken if you want to check out some more from that particular experimental band from Sydney. Fantastic stuff. If you want to check out the playlist, you can do so on edgeradio.org.au. Look for Kaleidoscope Ears on the program grid, and it will take you to our interactive playlist, which has been updated already with tonight's playlist. So you can have a flick through that and have a look at some of the images. And there's even a couple of video clips that I came across there to go with the tracks. So you can listen again if you wish. Going to be featuring our second band from now, and that band is also on the Birds Robe Collective label, which is called Birds Robe Records, which is at birdsrobe.com if you want to check that out. And the band is sleepmakeswaves, and very up and coming band. They've been around quite a while, but They've got a massive support gig that's just come their way, supporting Unitopia, who are Adelaide-based prog band that you don't hear too much about in Australia, but they are doing massive things overseas, getting lots of attention there. So to be supporting Unitopia for any band in any place, I think is a pretty amazing thing. sleepmakeswaves released their first album only very recently. The opening track, I'm going to play that to you now. It's called To You They Are Birds, To Me They Are Voices in the Forest.
Hi, this is Stephen Wilson from Porcupine Tree, and you're listening to Edge Radio. Enjoy.
I've got with me Otto Wicks-Green. He's the guitarist from Sleep Makes Waves. That's one word. Thanks for joining me.
No worries, Dwayne. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So how would you describe the music of Sleep Makes Waves?
We play what a lot of people call post-rock, and I get a little bit self-conscious using the term because it when people aren't familiar with it, they're like, oh, post-rock, who's this wanker, you know? But essentially it's instrumental music using a similar sort of instrumentation as traditional rock. So we've got guitars and bass and drums, but we don't have a vocalist per se, and we don't have verses or choruses or any of those traditional song structures. It's more about building crescendos and making a sort of emotional impact through music alone.
Being associated with the Birds Robe Collective, which is a group of experimental rock musicians which started in the Sydney area, but it's expanding all over the country.
Yeah.
You're sometimes lumped into the prog genre, and sometimes that can mean that a band's fan base consists of hippies from the 70s who don't want to let go of the past. Is that the case with your fans?
Well, originally when the band formed, there was a lot of metalheads who really got into it, and we were sort of, billers and promoters didn't know what sort of shows to put us on, so we got a lot of metal gigs, and metalheads really liked us because they were like, oh man, these guys are so chill, was the word that they'd use. This is so relaxing, even though to people who might listen to indie pitchfork-centered sort of rock, we're actually quite heavy. And then of course, we got onto the Birds Robe, and we got a lot of sort of attention from the prog fans, which is fine because prog fans are usually, it's a compliment. These guys like really, really intelligent music, and we're nowhere near that standard. We think we're just these guys who sit together and talk and play music about our feelings and stuff. So if we're attracting that kind of attention, then it's flattering, and all the more power to them for liking us. It's really cool. Hopefully, we'll get a bit of attention from people who aren't only interested in prog, and from people who are interested in a whole range of stuff. Like the dream is to sort of bridge that gap between people who love music with vocalists, whatever it may be, and who can appreciate us as well. Hopefully, that the songs are interesting enough that people can get on board with them from all walks of music.
But believe it or not, the prog fans are getting younger, I've noticed.
It's always a promising thing. I mean, having been, like, I'm not as into it as I used to be because my guitar playing deteriorated along with my interest in prog at the same time when I got interested in more chilled out instrumental stuff along the post-rock vein. And I used to be like big into like Pain of Salvation and Dream Theater and prog metal bands like Disillusion or Opeth. These guys were my bread and butter a few years ago, and I think I probably bring those influences in, or at least I try to. But now I've gotten more into delay pedals and sunsets.
The band seems to have been around a few years, but from what I've read, it got off to a pretty shaky start. What can you tell us about that? You're not an original member of the band, are you?
Yeah. So the band was going from around late 2006, and the four guys created a bit of buzz along the way after they released their first EP, In Today Already Walks Tomorrow, in 2008. So I was a big fan of this band from Melbourne called Ne Obliviscaris, and I was posting on their internet forum, which is where I met Tom Binneter, who's also a big fan of those guys. And we got talking, and he told me that he had this band called Sleep Makes Waves. And at the time, I was just getting interested in post-rock bands like Explosions in the Sky and This Will Destroy You from Texas. And when I heard that there was this really great band doing these similar things in Sydney, I was really excited, and I went along to like every show for the next year or so, maybe even two, however long it was. And Tom bowed out due to some sort of personal stuff. It was a really amicable departure, and he very nicely recommended me for the spot that was open. I'd uploaded a acoustic cover of one of their tracks to YouTube, so they knew I could play guitar, and so I joined at the beginning of 2010, which is a while ago now. But so it was a little shaky in the middle there because Alex, the bass player, had moved to Canberra to do some work, to do uni work at ANU, and the band sort of hit this. Oh God, what's happening? Is this going to keep going? But I had a lot of energy about the music when I came into the band, and I was like, guys, we've got a great thing going on here, bigger and better things, etc. Let's keep pushing on. And we played a few shows in 2010 where I sort of got my bearings, and then we immediately started writing new material for the new record.
So what's the story with this money and equipment that got stolen just before we went into the studio?
Oh yeah, so yeah, these bad things just kept happening. The first thing was that we'd been, over the course of 2010, we played a lot of shows around the country, around the East Coast at least, just to sort of introduce me to the audiences and to showcase some of the new material. And we got a bit of money out of them, not huge amounts obviously, but enough to set aside for recording. And we didn't have a bank account yet, and so all the money was sort of kept in a drawer basically at Kid's house. And somehow it was just a lot of bad luck, I think. These thieves broke in during the day when Kid was at work. They found the drawer and they stole close to $2,000 out of the house. And this was basically all the money that we had saved as a band for recording. And it was just a massive setback for us because, sort of emotionally and practically, having done all that work. I mean, you don't do it for the money, obviously. We do it because we love playing music, but it sure helps. And then we were like, we've got no choice. We've got to keep going, play more shows, earn more money, etc. And then the next thing happened was that Kid got these two beautiful guitars custom made for him by a company called 2012 Guitars in Melbourne. And I don't know if it was the same guys, but another set of thieves broke in, this time into his carport under his apartment building, and stole the guitars. And Kid especially was understandably pretty caught up about it. Luckily, the police ended up finding the guitars. These dudes tried to sell them at a pawn shop, and they were recovered. So, there were setbacks, but there was never going to stop us. We were always going to keep doing it because we had all this material and we were feeling pretty good about it. So in the end, these were just sort of like roadblocks, which we went on through and ended up recording the album in early 2011.
So you guys found a secluded spot?
Yeah, we
and
did.
You made your own studio for recording the album, which was called "And So We Destroyed Everything."
Yes.
Did you go and do that because you had the shortage of money?
No. The studio thing was actually just a practical consideration because we needed a place that we had these ideas from the very beginning about how we wanted to record, and our producer Dax, who actually did the EP back in 2008. A good friend of ours and big fan of the band, and we had this forum, this sort of thread thing going on with him where we were discussing everything, and we came to the conclusion that we wanted a single session. We didn't want to have to come in every day, finish at 10 p.m., start again at 9 a.m. the next day. We wanted to actually just get away from it all and spend a week or so just doing our thing. And it was very difficult to find a place like that in a city that we could use because of noise complaints and all that kind of stuff. And we also just wanted to get away from everything and actually have our own space. So it was a bit of a search, but Dax had this contact in the construction industry, actually, who had built this little log cabin as a gatehouse for his house, which was another couple of Ks down this dirt track. And it was perfect. And Dax actually got onto him when he was building this place and said, would you mind making a couple of modifications so that I can use it as a studio? And this guy, Graham, was a great guy and really, really helped us along the way with, even just morale boosters like some ice cold beers when it was very hot and our air conditioner broke. So we
got to have those.
Oh man, we were very grateful for Graham. But he put in things like a sort of glass window within one of the walls so that we could isolate that room and use it as a drum room, and Dax could look in and sort of while Will was tracking drums, stuff like that. A couple of structural changes which helped. And aside from that, we just brought a lot of baffles and other sort of sound equipment in on Dax's ute. The whole thing wasn't hugely expensive, but I think we would have gone there no matter how much money we had. It was a really, really awesome recording experience, aside from the air conditioner breaking and it being about 40 degrees every day, which was pretty unpleasant.
So it was just over this last summer gone, was it?
Yeah, it was. So it was February last year.
Which national park were you in?
We were in Wingello National Park.
Where's that?
It's about an hour west of Canberra from memory.
Yep.
So yeah, right out in the bush.
Gets very hot out there in summer.
Yeah, it was intense, man. You know, we brought all these fans in, and we had all these fans constantly going, and we were just sitting there. And I remember at one stage, after sleeping, I slept outside one of the nights on a leather couch, which is such a mistake because like leather just makes it sticky, and I just remember being attacked incessantly by mosquitoes and waking up the next morning feeling pretty bad and having to record some guitar parts. And I think it was for track 3, one of the really chill out tracks, and I was just like not in the zone at all. I was itchy, I was hot, and Alex is like, "Oh, dude, you know, chill out for a bit, have a glass of water." It was punishing, the weather, but you know, that's Australia, and that's what we wanted to celebrate with the album cover as well. Our art guy James Stewart was looking for some direction on what to do, and we said, "Well, we're an Australian band, and we recorded this album in the middle of the hottest summer we've ever felt, and so we want this front album cover to have this feel of Australian heat on it."
Is that an image from Wingello?
No, it's just near there. Yeah. It's just near Canberra, which was where he shot the picture. Yeah, we were really stoked with it.
And yes, you are listening to Kaleidoscope Ears with me, Dwayne. I'm currently speaking with Otto Wicks-Green from Sleep Makes Waves.
It's cool to be an Australian post-rock band. It's a bit weird, and a lot of them come from Europe and from America. So we wanted to say, yeah, we've got cool landscapes as well.
Of course. And your buggers, I was in Canberra last week. I think you're playing there. Is it this Friday or next Friday?
Yeah, we're playing there real soon. Let me just get up these precise dates. So Canberra is the Friday the 30th, and Wollongong is September the 24th. But yeah, it's real soon, and with a couple of awesome bands as well. Meniscus, our friends in Sydney, who were another band that really inspired me to get into this instrumental stuff. And Pirate, awesome sort of, I don't even know how to describe them, a sort of chaotic jazz fusion metal sort of thing, which amazingly talented musicians. And our friends Looking Glass as well, who I haven't heard much from, but I'm sure are excellent.
Even though it's some of the stuff is non-commercial, you're getting airplay.
Yeah, well, we've been really pleasantly surprised by the response that stations like Triple J have been giving us. You know, all especially people like Fenella Kernebone on the Sound Lab on Sundays, and Scott Fitzsimons on Dead Air Space on FBI in Sydney. You know, these guys are really into the alternative, not so commercial stuff. You know, they played tracks on our album that are, you know, like close to 10 minutes long. It's so lovely that they're going out of their way to do this stuff, and it's you know, it's really encouraging that we're getting the support from these radio stations, including you, Dwayne. We're getting our name out there, because you know you don't go into this kind of music expecting to be famous. But, you know, getting a little bit of recognition for the work is definitely really encouraging.
How do you go about constructing an attention-grabbing instrumental rock album? Do you think about that, or do you just put down whatever ideas feel right at the time? Is it instinct?
Yeah, I suppose it's a bit of both. We're going into this album, you know, the post-rock scene has become increasingly popular and increasingly crowded over the past few years, with a lot of bands doing instrumental stuff. And, you know, once upon a time, maybe 10 years ago, it was really interesting and exciting for a band like Explosions in the Sky or Mogwai to come along and do instrumental stuff and do it well. But it felt like that's not really enough anymore, you know, because so many people have heard that you have to keep trying to find new ways of making it interesting. And I suppose that's sort of making it a bit more of an intellectual pursuit than it is, because in the end we sit down and we write music. But on top of that, we're looking for ways to make it a little bit off-center, to make it a little bit weird. And so for this album, examples include our friend from Alabama, Matt Finney, who's this incredibly dark and deep sort of spoken word artist. And he actually got in contact with us a while ago about the possibility of collaborating. And for this album, we were like, yeah, that's a really cool thing that we could put on. And we wanted to put interesting instrumentation on, so, you know, strings and trumpets and stuff like that. But in the end, it comes down to just listening to a lot of stuff. Like we got into a whole heap of stuff going into the writing of the material. You know, Alex was into his vintage synth sounds from LCD Sound System and stuff like that. And I was really into the really sort of gentle chord structures of guys like Mark Kozelek from Sunkill Moon, and kids really into really heavy hardcore music. So we had all this stuff, and Will loves his J-pop. So all this stuff sort of I like to imagine just like putting into a blender and then filtered through our post-rock sensibilities. Alex writes a lot of this stuff by himself and sends it to us for ideas, and Kid and I will sort of play over the top and give him some suggestions here and there. Or a lot of the songs are also written by just me, Alex, and Kid sitting down, and Will contributes all his drum parts and also has a good ear for what sounds right. So it's definitely collaborative, and it's usually not an intellectual thing, but for releases coming up, we have a few ideas of concepts and things like that we'd like to aim for, and it's I suppose the other element is just never getting into a comfort zone, as a cliche as that sounds. Where we don't want to just write the same album again. We always want to add something new, something that'll keep us developing as musicians, I suppose.
Do you think with such a glut in the instrumental market, which I wasn't aware that there was such a glut, although even the Birds Road Collective roster is looking pretty full these days. Do you think there's a sustainable market for instrumental experimental rock? Do you think you'll be able to live on it?
Oh, it's scary. It's a scary thought. We try not to think about it, we all have day jobs, and it's not something that we had massively high hopes to get very successful off. I think it's very difficult to break into a point where you can actually do it for a living. There are a few cases of bands who have done it who are absolutely excellent. Like Russian Circles were out here recently, Mono are coming soon, and Explosions are coming in December. These are guys who started ahead of the curve and cemented a sound, a really, really structured and interesting sound for themselves, that captivated people. We're a bit late to the party, I think, for that kind of following and that kind of attention-grabbing sort of impact that these guys had when they arrived. Who knows, Dwayne? We might get lucky, and the buzz might catch on, and we might get, maybe we'll start doing some more pitchfork-friendly music. But we love big guitars too much, I think, is our problem. We love Isis, we love Russian Circles, we love Cult of Luna. We love these really heavy bands who turn their guitars real low and hit really loud, distorted chords. And that's never going to be that cool, unfortunately. So we're okay with that. We've accepted it. We have this expression in the band. The singer of Isis is called Aaron Turner, and I sometimes go through these crises of conscience where I think, oh man, maybe we should just put more synth in and be a little bit more people friendly. And Alex just says, what would Aaron Turner do, bro? And the answer is always the same, which is shave your head, buy some lobe plugs, and stay heavy.
You mentioned there that you might have come along too late to be one of the attention-grabbing bands in that genre, but I guess Pirate, who I'm also featuring this evening, their opening track, I don't know if you're familiar with their latest album, but their opening track just basically punches you between the eyes as soon as you hit the play button, and it's like an oral assault instantly. It's a brilliant first track to grab your attention and keep you the whole way through the album. With you guys, I put your first track on, and it starts off a lot more discreetly, shall I say. But it builds up, and it still does have that impact once it winds up.
Oh, thanks.
So I think you did a great job on the opening track on that album. I think opening tracks are really, really important.
Yeah, for sure.
Did a great job. And with a name like that track, to you they are birds, to me they are voices in the forest. Absolutely fantastic. That in itself has me intrigued.
Oh, well, that's really good to hear. And, I'm sure that you're a very discerning listener of music, and it's really appreciated. But I suppose on a more international level, we've got this core fan base of people that really like what we do, and it's growing. It is growing, and that's really encouraging to see. But I suppose, bands like Explosions came in and they had this immediate sort of gasp reverberated around the world, and people were like, whoa, this is really pretty, this is totally new. I haven't heard anything like this. That sort of that newness to it. I definitely think that we can still make music that affects people, and that people are impressed or moved by is definitely the goal. But the question is how many people, I suppose, will want to hear it and will get exposed to it.
You also mentioned too that all of you in the band are interested in the concept of the album.
Yeah.
And concept albums are usually associated with lyrics.
Oh,
How
with
do you
lyrics?
make it?
Yes, right. Yeah, well, it's actually something that we're going to start moving into, Dwayne. We discussed it as a band, and I can sing, not great, but I can. And there was a couple of vocals that snuck in on the end of this latest album, and then the last track, just a sort of melody that we all sang together in the studio after a couple of glasses of wine on the last night, which also followed a blackout, which was another story, kind of scary. Luckily, the power came back and we could put the vocals in. But yeah, we're actually going to be moving into doing some vocal stuff in some future releases for sure. We're not, we've never written lyrics before, so it's a little worrying because as soon as you talk about vocals, you have to start talking about lyrics, and that's a whole other kettle of fish for us. It'll be like starting again in terms of learning an art form of songwriting as such. But yeah, we're actually going to be hoping to put some of that stuff in, and hopefully people will like it. We'll see.
Actually, that leads perfectly into my next question,
Yes.
which is, why aren't you guys doing movie soundtracks? I can see you guys doing it.
Right.
Absolutely. Your sounds are so atmospheric, and I could actually see images going past my eyes when I was listening to the music.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. If they're good images, then write them down and send them to us, and we'll make a music video out of them. But to answer your question, I suppose we've had a little bit of it's called syncing in the industry, and you need someone. The person who generally lines these things up for you is called a publicist, and we don't have a full-time publicist yet because we didn't. I don't know why. I suppose we didn't find the right person, and we haven't been looking hard enough. But it's definitely something that we want to move into because with this kind of music, and actually going back to my previous example of Explosions in the Sky, one of the big things that put them on the map was doing exactly that movie soundtrack stuff for a film called Friday Night Lights back in 2004, I think. And it's something that we'd love to do for sure moving ahead to next year. And hopefully we're in discussion with a few different agencies at the moment. And hopefully these guys have a little bit more sort of networking and a little bit more know-how. And that's not to say that Mike, our manager, hasn't been amazing, and we'll continue working with him for sure. But in that sort of publicist role, hopefully these new people can find us some spots. There has been some sort of things along those lines, like some of our music was featured on a documentary made by the BBC, and there was something for a Brisbane Arts Festival recently, and the Parkour Association of Australia actually commissioned us to write a song specifically for them, which we released early 2010 or mid 2010. So we've sort of ventured a little way out into these waters, and we definitely want to go a little bit further because I think it's a really good use for our sort of music.
So you made the announcement a few weeks ago that you're losing your drummer.
Yes,
but the band is going to continue. I'm really concerned about that actually, because to me the drums on this album were an absolutely powerful instrument, and they were what's the word? Quintessential, I guess, to the album.
They
how are you gonna fill those big shoes?
It was a real sort of real blow for us losing Will, because he's a great guy and he's one of the founding members of the band, and as a fan of the band for the years before I joined, the drumming of those first two releases was really not really, but like a big part of what made me interested in it. Will's very interesting jazz style. He's a jazz drummer originally, and he got into bands like Mono and the instrumental stuff. And it was a perfect match because it gave that interesting sort of sound. His amazing rolls in his hands, Well, we've actually started auditioning some new drummers already. We had our first audition a few nights ago with a couple of dudes from the local area, and I can say, like, confidently, no matter who we pick, that these guys are going to be as awesome as Will. They will be, and it's just a question of what slightly different things they can bring to the band. Will was awesome in a very unique and really irreplaceable way, but these kind of things happen and you got to roll with them. When bands start to get a little bit of momentum like we have, people have to make that really difficult choice of what they have to prioritize in their life. And Will is a man of great integrity, and his decision was very difficult, and he told us as early as he could, and we completely understand his decision, and we wish him all the best for his future endeavors. And likewise, he does for us. But he just felt that it would be holding the band back a little bit to try and balance all the things going on in his life. But to replace him, a big thing for us is to find a drummer who has their own sparkle, similar to what Will brought to the band. That certain je ne sais quoi of a very strong voice behind the kit. And that's what we're going to be looking for. And the guys that we've auditioned so far are really, really promising. And I think it's going to be different, but it's going to be just as good in the years ahead.
But Will is continuing on with the album launch tour, isn't he?
That's right. He's been really great with the whole process, and his last show will be with the band that got him interested in this type of music, which is Mono from Japan, at Manning Bar on October the 8th, which is a kind of poetic finish to his career with Sleep Makes Waves. So we have, I think that's 4 more shows with Will in Wollongong, Canberra, Marrickville with Unitopia, and then with Mono. And then after that, if we get a chance to play some more shows towards the end of the year, which we are hopeful for, it'll be with our new guy, or girl.
Very good. You mentioned Unitopia. How did you get that supporting gig? Do you realise how big that is on an international scale in terms of prog?
Well, I'm not totally clued into the prog scene, so maybe I don't appreciate it as much as I should do.
There is actually a magazine that Classic Rock has produced called Classic Rock Presents Prog. It's an offshoot of Classic Rock magazine, and they did a readers' poll last year of the best prog bands. Unitopia was in there in the top 5 in some of them.
Wow. Man,
so I can't remember which categories, whether it was guitarist or bass player or whatever, or singer, but they were up there.
Wow, that's amazing. It's I have to again credit our amazing manager and at the moment booking agent Mike Solo for queuing all this stuff up for us. His work through the Birds Robe Collective has been really, really valuable for us over this past year, and this is just another example of the kind of shows that he can line up for us. He has, it feels like he has a million arms with a million hands, constantly doing things, bringing in bands, talking to them, talking to others, negotiating things, and this was one of the opportunities that landed on his lap, and he's always been a massive supporter of us, and any sort of opportunity that he thinks we can contribute to, he's always keen to help out. So we're absolutely psyched for the show, though. Obviously Unitopia are a massively well-respected band in this scene, and I just hope that people can dig something that's probably slightly less impressive on a musical or a musicianship sort of level, a little bit simpler, but hopefully comparably powerful.
It certainly is powerful. I can vouch for that. Well, I wish you all the best, Otto, with your current album launch tour and with your tour with Unitopia. That's amazing. It's incredible stuff.
Thanks a lot, Dwayne.
If it gets you some more serious prog and overseas exposure within Australia, I think that's fantastic. So thanks for joining me.
That's the dream. Thanks a lot for having me, Dwayne. It was nice to talk to you.
And yes, I too would like to thank Mike Solo from the Birds Robe Collective for setting up the interviews and getting some of the music to me to have a sample of as well. Really appreciate that, and it's really exciting stuff to have such a group of musicians staying true to non-commercial areas. I love it. We're going to go out with one more track from Sleep Makes Waves, their debut album. It's the title track I'm going to go out with, called And So We Destroyed Everything. But just to back announce a couple of the tracks, we heard A Gaze Blank and Pitiless as the Sun, and Our Time is Short But Your Watch is Slow. So check out our playlist at edgeradio.org.au, and make sure you tune back in next week at 6 p.m, because we will be featuring Stephen Wilson's second solo album called Grace for Drowning. Could be the biggest thing to happen on the show this year. Anything to do with Stephen Wilson is, in fact. So catch you next week. This is Sleep Makes Waves.